I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. 551.074, to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel, and the time is 5:30. The board will now reconvene into open session. The time is 6:49. On behalf of the trustees, I would like to welcome you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast Independent School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during the Matters from the Floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. We wish to emphasize that this is a business meeting of the board, and while those in attendance may disagree about issues, it is our expectation that everyone will conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner. Disruptions to this meeting by anyone will not be tolerated. In the event any person or group disrupts the meeting, a warning will be given to stop any disruptive behavior. Anyone persisting in disruptive behavior will be removed from the meeting. The board may also call a recess in the event of persistent disruptions so that individuals who engage in disruptions can be removed. It is our intent to conduct the meeting in an orderly fashion. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of Northeast to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Item 5, Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. A, Jackson Middle School, Ms. Deason.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I am Erin Deason, the proud principal of Jackson Middle School. This evening, we have the pleasure of doing the invocation and the pledges. We have two students with us this evening who truly represent what being a Jackson Jaguar is all about. I would like to introduce Haley Castro, who is here with her father, John Castro, her mother, Erica Castro, and her sister, a Jaguar alumni, Desiree Castro. Haley is a junior PAL, an athlete who participates in volleyball, basketball, soccer, track, and is on a softball league outside his school. She's also an honor roll student who takes all honors classes, an officer with National Junior Honor Society, and is a Safe School Ambassador. She'll be attending Lee High School in the fall. And we have Daniel Ramirez, who is here with his father, Daniel Ramirez Sr., his mother, Tara Robles, and his grandmother, Catherine Ramirez. Daniel is an avid and athlete who participates in football, basketball, track, and soccer. He is also an honor roll student who takes all honor classes, and he is going to attend Lee in the fall as well. At this time, we'll begin our invocation and our pledges.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now for the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. We would like to give a speech. We are on a journey of life. Life is ever changing and growing like water. Water I find the most unique. Water flows and crashes like waves, like streams and rivers in life. We go through twists and turns and loops. Water can also flow peacefully, and like life is peaceful in some moments. But like how a wave crashes against the rocks and disrupts peace, life can be flipped upside down. You can be swooshed up by the challenges you face, but it's how you respond to those situations and who helps you along the way.
The people, friends, and family around you become lost and forgotten in life. People change and grow, and encounters can be heavily impacted. The impacts could be big or small, and the small could be the most impactful. Even if I don't talk to them, I have grown to let those into my life because I believe and trust them. that they would give me the confidence, support, and strength. My classmates and I have grown, and our lives have been impacted through our friendship and relationships with others. We have also impacted each other's life. He has grown into someone I can call my brother, and I have grown into someone he can call a sister.
Our journey in life is ever changing. How we adapt and walk this path will allow us to appreciate our past and those encounters, and we could say at the end of that journey, wow, what a life, what a journey.
We would like to thank our school district and teachers for giving us this incredible opportunity.
Thank you.
Haley and Daniel, that was awesome. Would y'all please come forward? We have certificates for you, and we'd like to take a picture. I know. That was awesome how y'all shared it.
That was so wonderful. I love the message.
Okay, thanks.
There you go. Come on, Mom. Come on. You betcha. Come take a picture.
Thank you.
So I think all of these are matters from the floor, but I can't tell if curriculum, which item is curriculum? Which one is curriculum, do you think? That's from executive session. Yeah. Thank you all again for being here. Really appreciate that. I'm not sure. Which one do you think this one's going to speak to? Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. No, we don't. I have a question for number 3 who signed up. You said curriculum. Was there a specific agenda item? Do you know which number?
It's actually not specific to the agenda.
Okay, all right. All right, so thank you. Item 6, matters from the floor. The trustees welcome comments from members of the public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 3 minutes, but are not permitted to make 1, personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised using the district's grievance policies, 2, a personnel action, 3, a student disciplinary matter, 4, a complaint about a particular student, 5, or pending litigation. If you signed up to speak on a specific agenda item, you will be called up when the board reaches that item. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail, care of the superintendent's office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas, 78217. Ms. Huey.
I just want to make sure.
I'm sorry.
Do you agree that all of these are matters from the floor and nothing on agenda?
Yes.
Then? Okay, just want to make sure. Number 1. Sorry, mic's not on. Number 1.
Do I come here or here?
Right here in the middle.
Okay, super, thanks. I don't know how I'm going to follow those kids. Holy moly, they were awesome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me have this opportunity. My name is Holly. I am the mother of a freshman and a sophomore that attend Johnson High School. I did send an email to the board this morning. First email I sent was October 19th. Because of the limited time, I'm going to kind of skip the niceties of the email and go straight into it. My daughter and 2 other girls were threatened by another student. 2 of those girls were told, and I'm paraphrasing here, students who did overhear the situation wrote statements on their behalf. You 2 are going to have a threesome with me, whether you like it or not. Where another student was told, again paraphrasing, and again witnesses wrote statements to the school, I am going to rape you. I was contacted by the school to let me know there was an investigation into the situation, and while I was told the investigation was founded, that the witnesses supported the girls had to deal with the student was dealt with accordingly. My daughter came home and told me that the child was kicked off the football team. Oh yes, I did forget to mention that my daughter is one of the 2 girls on the football team supporting breaking ceilings, if you will, for the Johnson High School freshman football team. I thought that sent a clear message to the threats of this magnitude would not be tolerated by the school. A few weeks later, he showed back up to practice, completely blindsiding the girls. I went directly in to speak with the principal, vice principal, and coach. This leads me to the reason for my email. I was told that there is not a policy regarding how to handle a threat of a sexual assault by a student, and that this particular situation was not treated as a threat, but rather cyberbullying. I cannot believe in October of 2021, given the climate that we live in our country, that the Northeast Independent School District does not have a policy on how to handle a student that threatens to rape another student. This is baffling to me. Allowing the student back on the team sent a clear message to everyone, to include the girls, that they don't matter enough to protect, but that this young man's behavior was appropriate. There are many, many issues with the situations, but I will be brief. The nonchalant acceptance of these threats were made by another student. 3 girls and multiple witnesses came forward to confirm that they had heard him say these things, but I was told that there was not enough, quote, undeniable proof, end quote. It was a, quote, he said, she said, end quote. Witness statements are enough in the court of law. I don't understand why they're not enough in high school. My daughter has begged me to let this go. I cannot. She wants to be on the football team to be just, quote, another player, end quote. Would, better yet, should another player be expected to be exposed to these types of threats? Unfortunately for me, I know about the cycle of a predator, and this threat was just the beginning. This kid has learned from this one solitary incident that the threat of rape gets a slap on the wrist, if you can even call it that, because there is no policy that covers a threat of this nature. I hope that the principal was incorrect. I hope there is a policy that he's just maybe not aware of, because if it's true, when a child is raped by this kid, because it will happen, you will all have to explain to somebody's parent that a lack of policy prevented you all from sending him to therapy.
That's
or
your
doing
time.
more.
Time's up. Sorry.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Number 2.
My name is Deanna Fensel. First of all, I would like to thank the board's decision to hold the vaccinations outside school hours, and I would like you to please hold to that. Thank you. I'm here this evening to express my concerns between the Neisd School District and my job as the parent of my children. The first thing I would like to see change is the direction that I feel that the district is going in regards to social and emotional learning, also known as SEL, which is an ideology shared in critical race theory. I believe there is a vote coming up November 16th pertaining to health instructional materials by the State Board of Education, and I would like the district to please reject any instructional material or professional development for the teachers pertaining to this matter. I want to see more information on SEL be put online so parents can better understand it and what it is. I am the parent when it comes to social and emotional development of my children. I am the parent when it's time to decide what types of medical treatments my children need. I implore the school district, get out of the medical arena it seems to have gotten into and refocus solely on education of our children. Until this happens, I will continue to believe that our schools are no longer schools for the children just to learn. I will continue to believe the public school system is now another big, scary government industry that preys on tax dollars. And I believe that this will not end well for government-run schools, as they will continue to lose the faith and the trust from parents across the country. Parents will continue to pull our children out. Test scores will continue to drop. NEISD needs to reverse course and get back to basics of teaching our kids reading, writing, math, science, and social studies. There are organizations here in San Antonio, like the Parents United for Freedom, Moms for Liberty, Bexar County, Teachers, Parents, and Children, TPAC. We stand united and we will not give up doing right by the children. So that's what I'm here to ask you guys is just let's concentrate on their education and let's just stop with the medical policies. I think that's what we want. Thank you.
Number 3.
Good evening. My name is Polly McDonald. I am the chapter chair for Moms for Liberty Bexar County, a 501c4 nonprofit, nonpartisan civic organization. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. Moms for Liberty's mission is to fight for the survival of America by unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. We do this at the public school level by promoting liberty and freedom and supporting fellow liberty-minded teachers and administrators therein. We hold leaders and policymakers accountable, and we oppose government overreach. My concern, and that of our members, is first and foremost the radical curriculum changes that have quietly taken place over the last several years in our schools. We are also extremely concerned with the content of our school libraries, namely questionable, graphic, and explicit sexual content, and content that is anti-American in nature, but often runs parallel to approved curriculum. Curriculum that has been cloaked under terms like social emotional learning, or SEL, which sounds wonderful on the surface. Who wouldn't want to teach their children in a manner that would help them within their own peer group and help them with their emotional well-being? But the problem that we're learning is that it's not just about a social entity. It's not just about their emotional learning. There's a hidden agenda under it all. And as a parent, I'm here to tell you that we are wide awake to this now. And really, without virtual school and without this pandemic and the way that this has been handled across the country, we would all still be asleep. No more. We are investigating, we are vetting, we are replacing people in elected positions whose beliefs run contrary to American values, to Texas values. We are not domestic terrorists. We are parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, taxpayers, guardians. We are from all walks of life. We are all colors, backgrounds, and ethnicities, and we are not going away. And teachers and administrators that promote this Marxist ideology, I can assure you, there will be nothing that can be done against the wrath of parents who have realized they've been rooked, and their children are the ones who have been cheated the worst. In the words of Captain John Paul Jones of the Continental Army in 1779, we have only just begun to fight. Thank you.
Number 4.
Good evening, President Groen and members of the board, Dr. Micah. My name is Patsy Esterline and I'm representing Northeast AFT. In visiting with teachers, we have received a constant concern from teachers at high schools, middle schools, and elementaries on the need for more substitutes. We urge you to use your budgetary powers to address this shortage by acting quickly. One solution adopted by the Northside School District is to pay teachers and support employees $40 a class if they volunteer to relinquish their planning and preparation time to substitute in a class. Thank you for raising the pay for substitutes. Hopefully this increase will make it attractive to substitute in Northeast. There's a great deal of harm done when there is a shortage of substitutes. First, having teachers substitute for someone else's class is a distraction for the teacher and a drain on the teacher's energy. Second, It's taking the teacher away from their planning and preparation being done for that day. That can only be made up on the teacher's own time, so that additional time requires the additional $40. And it must be on a voluntary basis, as it requires more energy on the part of the teacher to teach another class and then have to make up that planning time later. In the elementary school, while there is often the same problem with teachers substituting during their planning time, a teacher may instead be asked to take half of another class for the day. This is extremely burdensome for a teacher to end up with 10 more students, and oftentimes no place to put all of them. It may also call for the lessons of the day to be thrown out and new ones made on the fly. And those can sometimes just be time fillers, not the real lessons meant for that day. Combining classes quite often means 3 classes that will need to play catch up in the following days. The 2 teachers who had to take the half classes and the teacher who was absent. So you can see the role of substitutes is critical to student success, which is why some districts hire certified teachers as permanent substitutes. This also ensures quality. A problem deserves a solution, so AFT requests that you place it on your next agenda. Thank you.
Number 5.
I think I need bifocals now. Honorable Board of Trustees, Superintendent, Dr. Micah, administrators, guests, good evening and thank you for the opportunity to address to you tonight. My name is Victor Paredes. I'm a former Neisd employee, and after 13 plus years, September 30th of the current year was my last day in employment in the Management Information System Department. I come to you after having recovered from physical and emotional distress with a hope that not just to be heard, but to be listened. I come to this session to address to you the topic of employee engagement and work environment. I want to ask you to ask yourselves, when was the last time an Neisd ran a program to determine the employee's engagement with the district? And I'm not talking about our yearly evaluation, self-evaluation. When was the last time you asked an employee, how is your working environment? When was the last time you asked, how is your relationship with your coworkers? Are you happy in your position? Are you being treated as a valuable employee? What is your relationship with your supervisors and above? I want to stop here a little bit to emphasize this last question. When I came here to work, the first thing I loved about my job was the environment that was generated by the loving people around me, especially my supervisors. They're no longer here, but it's fair to mention them: Sterling Rhodey, Louis Hernandez, Andrea Tondre, Kelly Harper. And I said to myself, I want to make a career here and retire from here. As you know, a job is composed of not just technical skills, but also the environment and relationship around it. This is why I come to you to address this matter, as many of us have lost that and more. I know COVID has made things difficult and you have a focus on the students, but this is not an excuse to do something about it. Something that it will be great and beneficial for the district. This is the best time to run a program relations survey. The employee has a voice that needs to be heard and listened. Think about the benefits. With information, you can find areas of opportunity that can be improved at all levels of the district, like people skills, management skills, project skills. You know that employees are resigning their jobs. According to an article, 40% of Americans are changing jobs. As for me, I did have to resign. I had to leave my beloved Neisd, where I placed my heart into to recover physically and mentally, mostly to get away from the environment that I was generating during the current administration of my department. As just imagine the kind of environment you can feel when they fired one of your coworkers, they fired one of your supervisors, and one of them left. One of them left with an excuse that he wasn't putting up to the expectations. Believe me, and let me assure you that no one can function properly when you're subject to a amount of pressure and stress. Now I understand him. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's all.
Okay. Do you want to announce that now or when?
Why don't you go ahead and do this and then look at the presentation?
Okay. Item 7, matters from executive session. A, personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments. A, assistant principal of Kruger Middle School. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item B, Director of Internal Audit. Do I have a motion to approve the director as discussed in executive session?
So moved. Go ahead, Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries. Item C, Director of Procurement and E-Commerce. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 2, possible action to submit complaint to SBEC for job abandonment without good cause by Chapter 21 contract employee. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Can't hit the mic there. I'm sorry. Okay, I move to notify SBEC of job abandonment without good cause as discussed in executive session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 3, possible action regarding proposed recommendation for termination of Director of Engineering and Technologies Academy at Roosevelt High School. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 8, presentations. But before we do that, Dr. Micah.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I just want you to be aware that we have a Boy Scout out in the audience this evening working on his Citizenship in the Community badge. Gavin O'Hallahan, would you mind standing up? Hello, Gavin. How are you? You can just sit, Gavin. I just wanted to make sure that you got recognized. He's in the audience this evening. He's with Troop number 90, and his home campus is the STEM Academy over at Nimitz. So thanks for joining us tonight, Gavin.
Glad you're here.
Item 8, presentations. A, Northeast Educational Foundation Annual Report to the Board of Trustees for the July 2020 to June 2021 fiscal year. Dr. Micah.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I would like to ask Jim Barshop, well, he's already there, at the podium. As you know, Mr. Barshop is our new executive director for the Northeast Education Foundation in partnership, and I believe he's joined by Carr. So thanks for coming tonight, Carr.
Thank you, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here. My name is Jim Barshop. I'm the new executive director of Northeast Educational Foundation. I have not met some of you yet, but I look forward to that opportunity in the coming months. And let's go ahead and begin. I began as education director on September 22nd, so I can take zero credit for the information that I'm about to share with you. The credit truly goes to our board leadership, Carr Hornbuckle, our board chair. We have in attendance our board treasurer, Judy Wheeler, and there are several board members in attendance that are also on the Board of Trustees. Thank you all for your service. And I want to thank the General Board of Trustees for all of your service. I'm in awe. But basically, the board leadership has done an amazing job. It is coming in from a third-party perspective into this position. The organization is healthy and in a very good place. So let's tell you a little bit about it. The credit also goes, of course, to Amy Lane and her previous administration. They did a phenomenal job over quite a period of time and left in good hands the program of Northeast Educational Foundation. We have an all-new team. The eldest member of our team is Sparky, and we're just actually replacing Natalie Bobadilla, our community relations specialist. The new person in that position will hopefully begin right after the Thanksgiving break. We're very excited to have him join us. Okay, so the Texas Educational Foundation Network awarded the Northeast Educational Foundation their Distinguished Service Award. There's only 2 in the state that received it, plus a $5,000 stipend. It's a great honor, and in this past year, ending June 30th, the Northeast Educational Foundation received that. Additionally, we have very strong financial results for year ending, again, June 30th. An increase in net assets of $213,000 or 15%. Increase in net revenue of $213,000 compared to $195,000, and truly that is amazing if you consider that that is during a pandemic year. You have in front of you the audit that has been completed, as well as the annual report. Our golf tournament this past year achieved a net of $108,000. The virtual gala, which was an innovation in and of itself, achieved a net of $193,000. The Big Give achieved $75,000, and a very creative enchilada night, which I hope some of you partook,
Yes.
netted $15,000 as well. So this is an example of an enrichment grant in action. We have Jiva at Hardy Oak, who was talking about the large print books that she experienced as a result of a NEEF grant. The large print books are of benefit to all students, but especially for struggling students, for students with English as a second language, and for dyslexic students. So it's very much appreciated. So where did all this money that we've raised go to? It went to 2021 donations to Neisd, and classrooms included $363,000 plus. An additional $169,000 in designated gifts went directly to the classrooms. And then there were a total of 36 total grants, the largest of which was to the STEM Academy, $78,000 for a virtual autopsy. You need to go check it out when it comes in. It sounds scary to me, but it underpins the entire biomedical program that arises up through the STEM Academy, and is a really an amazing piece of equipment that we're glad to have supported. The ICSI Robotics Initiative, almost $19,000. Additional $19,000 in supplies for the C-Tech Retreat Cabin for the structural and engineering learning. And then we also provided 100 new teacher supply grants at $200 apiece. So none of this could happen without our supportive sponsors. There's a lot of them. They're very ardent. And I'd like to talk just briefly about the future. That's what I can give a sense of and where we're headed. I'm going to introduce Cara Hornbuckle in a moment, our chair, who will talk about the strategic planning that was just completed this summer. I was hired in addition to running the program and being successful and continuing to make the donuts to develop an endowment program, which I'm very excited to do. Very much looking forward to that. And also, we have made great progress already with the grant process introspection, taking a look at what we do, how we do it, why we do it, what is the definition of need. I'm very excited about that introspection as well. In the first 6 weeks that I've been here, we have a completely new staff. We have a new paradigm, a new way of looking at the organization. We're already strengthening internal systems, bookkeeping systems, including board communication, bookkeeping, and file management. So it's a pleasure to be a part of. I'm truly blessed to be in this position. It's a great honor to be here, and I'll turn it over to Cara Hornbuckle, our board chair.
And I will just echo a lot of what Jim said by taking this opportunity that we have once a year just to formally say thank you to all of you for your support of the foundation. This past year has been, in many ways, as much of a struggle for the foundation as it has been for the school district. also think it's important for us to say thank you to our sponsors. The fact that we have still been able to do so much work on behalf of the school district, we're certainly very grateful for. We did finish a 3-year strategic plan update in June that Jim alluded to. So we're looking at sort of what our next steps will be in order to continue to very closely work with Northeast on the initiatives that you all want to undertake. What's important to the district is what's important to us. I'll be forever indebted to Amy for everything that Amy Lane did for our organization for the years that she served as executive director. But I'm very excited to have Jim on board. Finding him has been a great blessing for us, and I know that he's going to bring a lot to the position and to our organization. I didn't know if you all had any questions that you would like to ask of me or of Jim. He mentioned Judy, our treasurer, is here as well. I'm glad she could join us tonight. But in general, that's just what we have, just an opportunity to say thanks for everything on behalf of the foundation.
Well, thank you for everything that y'all do. Raising money, and I got to tag along on several of the grant giveaways, and it's so fun. And it's so fun to see the excitement of those teachers, even if it was a $250 check for a Lego club for lunch. I mean, still, it was just the impact that you're all making for all of them. So, but we couldn't do it without our sponsors and everyone who gives, and so that's just so really grateful. But did anyone have any questions for Jim or Carr?
I just have some comments.
Okay.
Hi, Carr. I want to know what happened to your ponytail. But
I had to clean up my act eventually.
But I've been gone for a while, but I intend to get back active. I really missed not being with the group. I had some other issues I had to take care of, but I'm glad that everything worked out well and that I'm back, and I look forward to again the gala, being active, and Jim, you have some big shoes to fill with Amy being gone, but thank you, Carr, for everything that you've done and your leadership.
Well, you teed that up well, because I did want to add one more plug for the gala, which will be back in person in February. I don't know the exact date. February 18th at the Whitty Museum. Jim is neck deep in planning on that with the committee, and Avery's chair of that committee. So I fully expect and look forward to seeing all of you there. Hint, hint. So there's nothing else.
Okay. No. All right. Thank y'all. Thank you for the presentation. Really appreciate it. Thank y'all for being here. Item 9, board business. A, possible action regarding election of Bear Appraisal District Board of Directors 2022-2023 voting phase. So a couple of meetings ago, we came up with a candidate, John Fisher, that we wanted to nominate. And so now what we need to do is we need to cast our vote, and we'll have to fill out a form. So we have 743 votes, and I believe in the past we've given them all to one candidate.
In the past, we had enough to do our candidate and possibly share with another if needed. And because of the changes that in adding other people onto the votes now, we no longer have enough to automatically ensure John Fisher's vote, that he would be elected. So, and I think Dan takes care of this. I'm not sure who takes care of. We reach out to other districts and see if they would support our candidate. The minimum to ensure his participation on the board would be 834 votes. I'm looking at Dan because I know. Isn't that correct? Okay. It's been a couple of years.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we need to get John to a minimum of 834 to ensure that he is on the board.
So how does that process work, Mr. Villarreal? Do you reach out to other?
Well, in the past, we've always had more than enough. So now.
So this is the first time?
Yeah, this is the first time that we're going to have to.
Yeah, second time.
We're going to have to try to reach out and see what Northside has, because they're usually our voting partners.
Okay. So you'll do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
So they can allocate some of their votes to our nominee
to
ensure that he's elected.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so,
91 short.
Right, correct.
okay. So do I have a motion to cast all of our votes for John Fisher and submit those votes to the chief appraiser before December 15th? There's a resolution that we'll need to sign.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay, and then Mr. Villarreal, if you'll follow up with that, would be great. Thank you. Item B, discussion of possible policy BDF local. Okay, this is just a discussion about whether or not we want to create a local policy for BDF. This is on here because Mr. Hilliard had asked for that a month or so ago. So I did a little bit of research about BDF local because all we have right now is BDF legal.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at 16 school districts, the largest districts in Texas. And I'll tell you who I looked at. Cy-Fair, Northside, Round Rock, Schertz-Cibolo, SAISD, El Paso, Arlington, Katy, Aldine, Fort Worth, Klein, Conroe, and Houston. Those all do not have a BDF local policy. They just have BDF legal. Then I also looked at Fort Bend, Austin, and Dallas, and those three did have a BDF local, in addition to BDF legal. So I don't know if we really need to have a local policy because we have regulation. We have BDFR, that is the administrative regs that define parameters for the SHAC committee and other advisory council committees. So the purpose of this is to discuss and determine if we feel like we want to go with a BDF local policy, or if we want to perhaps put some parameters or more information in BDFR. So I'm going to open it up for.
So amend BDFR.
Well,
or
Is it an
add-
option?
Maybe not amend, add to or supplement.
Supplement that
Okay.
is what we could do. I guess we don't have to have a local policy.
No.
And it seems that based on what I looked at, it's not very common to have a local policy. But I'll go ahead.
I don't know if Mr. Byer was going first. I'll let him go first. Obviously, I was the one who requested it. And part of the concern, obviously, this is the board council, that our advisory council. It's not a staff district like a DEIC committee. So it's that and the CBAC that we have. And as we went through this in September, we noticed that some of the names, we weren't sure exactly how they got there. Not a clear process. And then obviously, we only one or two of the folks actually weren't even eligible to serve. I know one of the folks in my district's been on there for 8 years. And for me, I think there used to be a SHAC bylaws from about 2012 to 2017, which has a lot of good structure to it. Term limits, how you nominate people, how the committees are done, chair, vice chair, which I think would provide structure because our BDFR is only half a page, 4 paragraphs. And currently it's out of compliance with the law because it says SHAC meetings are closed, which obviously 1525 has changed. And with the new, I'm assuming there will be a BDF legal that comes out with 1525. It would make sense that we put policy as a board, because this is what we do, is policy in place for our advisory council to make sure that it has those best practices, that it's clear, repeatable processes, so we know when nominations are due, when they elect the chair, vice chair, all those things. A lot of it's already, we could probably cherry pick out of the bylaws had a lot of good stuff in it, but I think it would provide a very clear process for the community for our board, since it's that, versus the regulation obviously is the district admin piece below ours. Since this is our council, it's not a district one. That's the reason I felt we should have a board policy, since this is our advisory council board. And obviously the district regulation can be further instructive of the day-to-day piece that is written by the district staff. That was the reason I thought it was important for us to have a BDF local, so we be very clear about it.
So what would the local do that the regulation could not do? Other than the fact, because with a policy, then that would always, every time we change the word "the" or something like that, we would have to come back to us.
Right now,
whereas the regulation
has no discussion of term limits, when voting happens, when anything happens. It's very generic. It's almost like the legal.
So looking at the regulation part of that, because I mean the legal indicates board, if I'm not mistaken. The regulation indicates board or campus administration or campus principal, I think it specifically calls out, as far as naming people to that committee. And I guess my question would be, like, I think it'd be great, especially with 1525 coming out and understanding how that impacts the BDF legal, because again, I'm sure we'll get something. But then with the BDF, the regulation, could that be a better mechanism so that we're not always having to evaluate this every time something changes? I guess I don't know if that's
I think if we wrote
a possible discussion to have.
Certainly, I mean, BDF legal has the big, I'd call it the generic requirements.
Correct.
The limit, I think the local is where we get to say how we want it to operate. We want to have 50 people. We want to say 4 per single member district for 28.
Well, I guess.
And we could be a little bit more clear on that, because this is, right now, there's nothing really written. It's kind of passed down. There's nothing clear that average people would know, that we can clearly explain to the community members and the people of how this process works.
Well, I guess my fundamental question is, could we do that in a regulation and not a policy, so it's sort of one less thing that has to keep coming back
And
to
I
us?
think
we could, but the regulation, this is our board, to me, this is our board policy. We only have this board only has 2 things, right? CBAC and SHAC that are our advisory councils. The rest are district committees. And while we have a lot of local policies, most of those don't have a regulation. So this was swapped in 2017. The bylaws kind of went away, and this regulation was written. They kind of went from 5 pages of bylaws to a half page. And I just think there was a lot more detail and clarity for people to operate, so that we could be very clear about the annual timing of meetings, reports, vice chair, chair, all those pieces that were in here. And it's a pretty good document, and we could just kind of build off of that, was my thought. So it's a very clear, repeatable process for the long term.
But I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I made I printed so that I had access to it, the local policies. They're not specific at all about their committees.
Agreed. I've looked at the Dallas ISD and Leander. Some of them are not as specific.
Austin and Fort Bend. I personally, I don't know that we need a local policy. I think we could, if we as a board determined that we needed to set term limits, or we needed to be more specific about how members of SHAC are appointed. I mean, because that's in this BDFR already. It says what the makeup's going to be and how they're appointed. I think you could just tighten this up in R, because it basically, to me, this is the beginning of that outline and information, and then just make this more specific. That's my opinion, but.
Would it be better, too, to wait until we see what 1525 does to BDF legal? If that means that there may be some other regulations that we need to address, or
the ZHA is tied to this, or several other that are tied to, obviously, the whole series of these regulations. So I think if we put more specificity, if we did through the regulation, that might be an option as well. We could all come up with ideas to improve, I think, or be more specific.
Do we know what the time frame is usually between, let's say, the House bill passing and them making those updates? Is there
they said November of this year,
That's
but
what I
this other 117 is a year behind. So
yeah,
so.
Just
don't let a good idea get in the way of a process.
I mean, good luck. Yeah.
Peggy, do we know in 118 is BDF legal in there?
It hasn't come out yet.
Okay. 'Cause they sent us the email that it was coming, though.
Okay.
So maybe
that
it's
could
in
be-
118.
Okay.
But I guess that brings up a good point of seeing, is there anything that then
Drives different.
It's not going to get into setting term limits and that kind of thing, but it might be worth looking at all that at the same time. And whatever's in that legal, if there's something that prompts a local, if not.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I
Like,
think you're right.
Regulation might be the way to go, but I don't want to kick the can down the road, but at the same time.
Well,
No,
I mean,
but-
at least
but
align
do
it
it
for
one
next year
time.
before we get into next year. We align whether we beef up BDFR and be maybe a little more specific or wait and align with the legal, because there will probably be changes to 1525 that may or may not drive certain requirements.
Yeah.
Obviously, the shack's already open and their audio, video recording. That's one piece of it, but just so that we can align everything, I think is big important to have some clarity on the processes and some of the things that we want from our board, whether it's BDFR or local.
Okay.
Okay, so this was just, a discussion item. There was no possible action or anything. So if we want to do something, we would have to put that on a future agenda item. So, but what I'm hearing is we're going to kind of.
Yeah, I think it would be good to get an update as to if we get information about when it's coming out. I think then that will start speaking to when we might actually make a.
And then we can all bring items to kind of consider and look at.
Yeah.
Hey, Peggy, maybe what we can do is give Tasby a call tomorrow and see if BDF is in 118. Maybe at least that'll give us an approximate, right? Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right, thanks. Item 10, new business for possible board action. A, COVID-19 information update on and possible adjustment to existing COVID-19 plan.
Can you make it bigger?
Can I have a pair of glasses to read that? Is that?
The last time, Mr. Byer, I believe you had asked for this to come back. So you can just see here, I will note or point out to you that there's an asterisk in the city of San Antonio's numbers because as of today, they have not reported their numbers. For the past week, we have, though. So you can see here there has been a pretty steady decline since August the 30th, right in line pretty much with the city. I mean, there's nothing showing here whatsoever of any large spike or anything like that.
Great.
That's all I have.
No,
I
I
mean,
was going to say.
there it is.
I assume we're going to continue to post the information on the website.
Yes, sir. Okay. We will continue. What we did, I don't know, Ms. Chancellor, when it was, but we really streamlined it so that, because sometimes it wasn't coming out until Tuesday, and so we made some adjustments internally to make sure that we reported them on Monday. Because for some folks, when we didn't report them until Tuesday, I think the narrative was there must be something bad, wrong. And it wasn't. It was just we were waiting on a delay in some reporting. So we honed some things internally and are now making sure that we post them every Monday by campus as well.
Okay, so I'm going to ask if we need to continue to have this, or if somebody wants to see this comparison report, can that just be sent to us as an email or?
I just got one other question. I just want to get clarification because I know I bring up it last time, and I just want to make sure we're all on the same sheet. At the August emergency meeting, we discussed the initial 6-week mask, which obviously, but we also talked about the superintendent being able to spot masks. Is that correct? That was part of the vote that we took. And then we talked about metrics, which obviously there aren't metrics, but so from my understanding is right now, even if the law changed tomorrow, the spot masking is not in effect anymore. Everything is null and void. The Board of Trustees has the masking authority only. If we go down there, is that the understanding? I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
That is my interpretation.
Okay, so we, the board, have it. No more spot masking.
Yes, sir. Okay. If something were to happen, again, it would come back to the board. Okay.
Just make sure I was clear on that. Thank you very much, and I agree. If maybe we just get the email slides or whatever, look on the webpage, whatever.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so going forward, we don't need that as an agenda item. Okay. You note that. Thank you, Peggy. Item B, Board Policy 1, possible action regarding Board Policy Update 117, first reading. Dr. Micah.
Sure. So there are just 3, I believe, in there. I do want you to note that As you look in your board packet, you'll see DEC in there. We pulled DEC out of 117 for a reason, all right? That policy has changed, and there's a lot in that one. So we wanted to unpack that one separately. So 117 with the update for first reading tonight, I'm
Is just
trying to find which.
CH and CV.
Yeah, there's those three, CHCV.
Right.
I'm sorry, CH and CV.
Yeah.
And my staff is here. Should there be, Dan, do you have anything to add to it?
No, sir. We'll talk about
DEC separately.
Separate, yes, sir.
Correct. There's just so much in there, and it has changed multiple times since the beginning. In fact, the first time we saw it, it had to be amended because it was inaccurate.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions about 117 CH local and CV local?
Real quick, it looked like we got 2 copies of both of those policies, or all 3 of those policies.
Is that always comes through?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then has anybody ever figured out why, like I'm looking at CH local and it says
50,000.
the 50,000 is crossed out and then put right there next to it?
No.
Does anybody know what happened, how that happens, or why that happens?
Other than
Anybody?
The red was written in 19, so they
Maybe.
just crossed it out and put it in blue.
Okay.
And put today's date. That's the only thing I could figure, but we did not do it when I was.
Yeah, and I think if you look at past updates and what we're seeing in DC, there was a lot of changes that TASB had to make. So I think they've done changes, and then they realized something was wrong. So then they said, oops, I think we got to. So I think even amongst themselves, I think there's might be some errors that they might catch. So I know we did catch some. So, and then we talked to TASB about changing.
Okay. Yeah. So any other questions about CH or CB? Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the first reading of the above listed policies included in Update 117 with the exception of DEC local as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay, item 2, possible action regarding board policy DEC local, first reading. Mr. Jimenez.
Yes, Madam President.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. We're kind of doing a duel, but I want to call Charlotte Winton and Brian Moy to the podium. Charlotte's our Executive Director of Human Resources, and Brian's our Executive Director of Finance and Accounting, and they're going to speak to some of the things, changes to DEC.
Thank you. Good evening. As Dr. Micah alluded to, the version of DEC that was put originally into 117 was sweeping and broad, and we just were not comfortable with making every single one of the changes all at once. So we're going to, what's in the policy tonight in this one reading of DEC is what was already in our DEC, plus a couple of things regarding leave payouts that we had already were ready to bring you to after Rick's review. And then there were a couple of bills passed in the regular session regarding officer leave, and those are the changes that HR put in. And we will be slowly unpacking the rest of the changes and bringing you further updates to DEC as we are prepared and comfortable and reviewed.
Okay. Does anybody have any? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sandy.
I just had a couple of quick ones. I think under the peace officers, the mental health leave, and it says a district peace officer who experiences traumatic event, a maximum of 2 days. Why only 2 days? And can we change that? I can't imagine, there might be a traumatic event that maybe it only does need 2 days, but there might be something that needs more care.
I am actually going to ask Jason Paracello, our Director of HR, Records and Compliance, to come forward. He's been working on this with TASB, so he can speak to this item.
All right.
Can I add my second part to that, and you can answer at the same time?
Yes,
My
ma'am.
second piece would be, it's very specific to peace officers, so are we assuming that an employee in an office or in the cafeteria would not have that same experience, and why aren't they included in this policy?
Thanks.
It's a great question. I'll answer the second question first. So this specific policy or this specific law was passed, and it applies to all police departments across the state. So it's not just a school district police department or a school district law. It's a law that applies to police departments across the state. And if it's something that we want to consider for all employees, that's certainly something that could be considered. But for our purposes, it only applies to police officers per the law. So that's why it's being inserted into DEC. And for the second question, the number of days, it could be an unlimited amount of days that we have to give a minimum of 1. The law is not very specific at all in this area. But in talking to our policy consultant, she stated that most large districts are going with 2 days. The number of days, though, is up to us as far as how many we want to offer. So that's a local decision.
I really kind of hate putting a cap of 2 that's not deducted from employees' pay, not knowing what circumstances they may be dealing with. It seems limiting.
Sure.
I don't know.
I
would
agree
define
with you.
it.
I agree with you. It seems limiting, but I am encouraged that we have services for our employees. You know, when they need to speak to someone as far as mental health or emotional health, but that is not something that is left on the wayside. I truly believe that, and I hope we can come back and offer this to our teachers, to our staff, to our employees, because if a traumatic incident happens, we need to be assured that everyone is covered. But I think that that's when our services would come into play.
I agree, and I think, would they also still be covered under the sick leave bank, maybe if there was some necessity there for an extended leave due to would they?
I don't believe the sick leave,
that's a little bit above
it would have, it would not, because the sick leave bank doesn't cover mental.
That was,
Okay,
yeah, that's
so it
my
doesn't
question,
cover
yeah.
mental health
Okay.
issues. That's correct.
Okay. And then the other question too is this part of the law too that the peace officers are specifically granted quarantine leave?
That's correct. It's part of the law.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So that was following along with the previous one that's specifically for peace officers?
Yes, ma'am. There was
Okay.
2 different bills. There was a House bill and a Senate bill, and
Okay.
one dealt with each.
All right. But this is still our DEC local, and it's not, okay, got it. All right,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Don't leave because there might be other questions.
Just a request, possibly, like in here references DEC legal. Is it possible for efficiency for the trustees just to attach the legal documents? I know our packets are already really big, or a quick link. Because it's sometimes, they want you to cross-reference the legal with the local just to have an idea of the changes, if they're new legals. Is that a possibility?
So including the legals in your packet?
Well, I don't know how big they are, though, so I know some
They're
legal, okay.
Usually a lot.
Okay, so
quite
it
a
may
few.
not be worth it then, okay.
It's up to you. I mean, it's up to you.
No,
guys,
I
but
don't
yeah.
want to, we already have big packages.
Yes.
Sometimes I don't, to cross over and go find it takes a little bit of time, but
Yes,
it's
yes.
informative to cross-compare the local.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
fair enough.
I just have one more question. Where it talks about, it's page 21 of our packet, and it talks about local leave shall be used according to the terms and conditions of state sick leave accumulated before the 1995-1996 school year. That was a long time ago.
Yes, ma'am. Do you want to answer that one, Brian?
So will you explain that? I thought it was very interesting how specific that was.
I'm looking at Brian because they manage the sick leave bank, so I'm.
Okay, it is.
Oh, you want to handle this one? All right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Excellent.
What page?
I can address part of that. At that time, that's when the state used to give sick leave. We now give local sick leave as a district. They offer state personal leave. That's the 5 days awarded to all employees. So it changed, and they created a new category. So we have a few employees still with us that had that time, and so that is still available to them for use.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, I couldn't even find the page.
Anything else? Mr. Byer?
I had one question about the neutral absence control, where it talks about employees returning to work after expending all of their leave. Does that happen the very next day, or is there because I guess it doesn't necessarily say, and maybe it says it in the legal, but it doesn't necessarily clarify. If that's a 2-day grace period, a 1-day, 7-day?
So actually, as an employee is approaching the expiration of their max allotment, we notify them 10 days prior to that
10
date.
days,
So we
okay.
already work with them to determine, do they have an appointment?
Got it.
We did look at whether under ADA, if there's a reasonable accommodation. So perhaps as they are approaching that expiration of leave, they might have an appointment in 2 weeks. And so we can obtain medical documentation, then we'll evaluate that.
Got
But we do have a practice of not only sending them written notification, but then calling them in, discussing with them options about what their next steps are if they're looking towards separation or other options. with the
Okay,
district.
so they're notified
Yes,
ahead
sir.
of time. Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you.
Anything else on DEC local?
Thank you.
There's more.
Oh, yeah.
This is just the first piece. We will keep looking at DEC over time as they continue to unpack it because it's a lot. It's a lot.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the first reading of DEC local as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you all very much. Item C, Instruction and Campus Administration. 1, possible action regarding adoption of 2021-2022 early literacy and math proficiency in college, career, and military readiness goals. Mr. Jarrett.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. At this time, I would like to ask Jennifer Gutierrez and Dr. Esmeralda Munoz to come forward for this agenda item.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. This evening, we bring to you early literacy, early math, and Ccmr goals. And I need this. Thank you, Jason. We're going to start with some background information, and then we are going to share some current data that aligns to the goals. I will present on early literacy and early math, and Dr. Munoz will present on the Ccmr goals. So just for some background information, in 2015, Texas launched the 60 by 30 plan with a vision to be the highest achieving state in the nation. And these 4 goals that you see here are a roadmap to ensure that we can achieve that future through a focus on higher education. Then in 2019, Governor Abbott passed House Bill 3, and these 4 major areas were his focus, and early literacy, early math, and Ccmr aligned to that purple box that you see circled there with a focus on learning and improving student outcomes. So again, in keeping in alignment with the 60 by 30 and House Bill 3, we continue to have a huge emphasis on early childhood, which refers to pre-K through 3rd grade, and college, career, and military readiness. And we measure this through our goals, which support that pre-K through 12th grade continuum. Again, our goal is to have a 60% or more of our students reaching that meets level at 3rd grade reading and math, and then 60% or more of our students, high school seniors, graduating Ccmr ready. So here is our most current STAR data that aligns to our early literacy. As you can see, this is our 2021 STAR reading results at the meets level. So our STAR assessment has 4 performance levels, does not meet, approaches, meets, and masters. And here we're looking at students that scored at the meets level or above. If we go to the far right, we can see our 3rd grade reading scores dropped 1 percentage point. So that negative is the drop from previous 2019 scores, since we didn't have an assessment in 2020. And then how we did compare to the region. So we had 47. That 47 is the number of the percent of students that scored at the meets or master's level. Then we can see at 4th grade, we had a drop of 4 percentage points compared to 2019. 41% of our students were at the meets or higher. And again, you can see the comparison there to the state and the region. And in 5th grade, we dropped 1 percentage point, and we are at 54% for the meets level. When we look at math, we know that we lost a lot more ground, and we've been having these conversations about math. We see double-digit losses here. You can see that we dropped 16 percentage points in third grade, and we had 34% of our students scoring at the meets or masters. And again, you can see how we fared compared to the region and the state. Fourth grade, we had a drop of 7, and in fifth grade, we had a drop of 15. We want to draw some attention to, the shutdown that we had in 2020 and how we had some unfinished learning and mathematics especially. That hurts our students because those are skills that they need for the following year, for the next grade level that vertically align to future learning. And so those are some foundational skills and concepts that needed to be retaught there that they may not have mastered. Now, the test that we just looked at, the STAR assessment, we're looking at achievement. This assessment is our measure of academic progress, which we refer to as MAP. This is what we use to measure growth in our district at the beginning, middle, and end of year. So this assessment is different than the STAR assessment where you're measuring achievement. Here we're measuring progress from 2 points in time. I want to draw your attention to the far left, kindergarten. So the lighter blue is pre-pandemic. So when our students took the MAP assessment pre-pandemic, the score that you see here is called a RIT score. That is the mean of all of our kindergarten students in the Northeast. And so pre-pandemic, you can see that we have the same score in kindergarten that we have in the orange, which is this beginning of the school year. The bars that you see in the middle, the darker blue, those assessments were from 2020 when we were in 100% virtual and our students took those tests remotely. So especially at our primary grades, you can see that the results are not typical of what we see during even pre-pandemic or what we're seeing now. And so those students may have had some assistance since, we didn't have a teacher to monitor at home. So again, you can see here that our students, when we're looking at grade level by grade level, pre-pandemic to now, we have some minor losses, but not huge. And we do attribute that to our summer programs. We had over 4,000 elementary students that attended summer school compared to previous years when we had only had about 2,000. So our expansion of summer programs, every title campus had summer school on their campus, and also Jumpstart, which was new this year. We had 4,600 students that attended Jumpstart, so we feel that really helped. Here are our math, again, looking at pre-pandemic in fall of 2019 compared to where our kids are coming in at the beginning of the year. You can see some are the same. We have a few that have dropped by a few percentage points, but not huge losses there. And we do see that kindergarten came in stronger in math. And again, we want to say that was because of that Jumpstart program, because those students at our Title I campuses had that opportunity to have 2 weeks of instruction prior to starting their school year. So now we move into the early literacy and early math piece, and our outcome is set at third grade, reading and math. That is the first year that our students take the STAR assessment. The complexity increases in third grade, so we want to make sure that our students are ready for the demands of third grade. And we're looking at whether they have met, that's why we're looking at the meets level, have they mastered those grade level standards. We're also looking at all of our student groups to ensure that they are also meeting those complexities of foundational reading and numeracy. And our campuses create goals based on their data. And these, again, are reviewed and we bring them to you annually. And the professional development plan is tied to our district instructional improvement plan so that it all aligns. and the same for the campuses. Their House Bill 3 goals are aligned to their campus instructional improvement plans, and you will see that all of our goals are written in a SMART goal format. So at the very top, we have our outcome. So our goal is for the percent of third grade students that score meets grade level or above on STAR reading to increase from 46% to 55% by June of 2024. And you can see where we were in 2018. We have 46% of our students at the meets level. We were trending in the right direction. 2019, we were at 50%. And then we did not have an assessment due to the shutdown. So our goal, our 2021 goal, was based on the progress that we were making 2018 to 2019. So our actual score at the meets level for literacy was at 46%. So you can see that we had to adjust our goals some to ensure that we can get back on track. We have our student groups below. And again, we were making progress with our student groups, moving in the right direction. 2020, we didn't have an assessment. You can see the actual 2021 goal for each of the student groups and the actual score. So we have in reading, we have our goals set to, again, continue to move towards that 60% by 2030 that we had talked about at the beginning. And this is a living document. And so based on our data, we will continue to really look at whether we can adjust those goals. If we score higher, obviously those goals will be increased. And it's very hard with the variables that we had during the pandemic to know. So we should have a better indicator in 2022. Since we only had, I did want to mention this, we only had 84% of our students that actually tested on STAR because the parents had to bring them in to test in person. And so also for our student groups that do have some gaps, we have some gaps that we have to close for our African American, our Hispanic, our special education, and our economically disadvantaged students. We have added an additional 3% to those goals to make sure that we are closing the gaps within those student groups. So in order to meet that third grade goal, we have to progress monitor along the way. So we have 3 progress measures. One is at pre-K. They take the circle assessment, and that is an achievement test. And you can see that they actually met their goal. Their goal was 76%. They actually met that goal. And the green boxes that you see in 2021 means that they either met or exceeded the goal for the student groups. And we are very excited to see that our pre-K students are coming to kindergarten ready to read, since this measures phonological awareness. The kinder goal is measured based on MAP, which again, now we're looking at a growth assessment again. And when you look at our yearly targets, you can see that the baseline is based on middle of the year assessment in 2020 because we didn't have an end of year assessment in 2020. So at that time, in middle of the year 2020, we had 44% of our students that had made growth from beginning of the year to middle of the year. So we had set our goal at 45. And as you saw in the data that I shared earlier, with students who tested remotely, they started off very high in kindergarten. So it's hard to measure progress when they start very high. They're not going to meet their growth goals. And so here you can see the effects of that, and us only having 27% of our students who met or exceeded their growth goals in kindergarten. Again, a living document we will continue to monitor, and our teachers are working closely with their beginning of the year MAP data to ensure that they are differentiating and meeting the needs of the students. And the last progress measure is first through third grade. So again, ensuring that students have those foundations in literacy. Here we see that that goal was met when you combine first through third grade reading. So we scored 47% of our students met or exceeded their growth goal. And again, just the same format for each of these sheets. So for our targeted improvement plan or professional development plan for literacy, all of our kinder through third grade teachers and campus administrators are completing reading academies currently, and if they're not in the program this year, they will complete it by next year. There is a big focus on foundational reading through the science of teaching reading and best practices in literacy instruction. We know that if our students have a very robust foundation pre-K through third grade, then they will be ready for the demands of fourth grade and beyond. And so we're focusing very closely on phonemic awareness, phonics, even for our students that are currently in third, fourth, or fifth that may have some gaps because of the interruption to instruction. We have some phonics programs for them that help close those gaps. Really making sure that our reading teachers are embedding the reading, the writing, the listening, the speaking together, and really correlating that to their instruction, and constantly focusing on that data. So looking at MAP assessment data, their formative assessment data. They have some end of unit assessment data as well that they're looking at to differentiate meet in small groups and either reteach or extend for students. So this, again, follows the same format. Here we have math. So our outcome goal is for our third grade students to score at the meets grade level or above, and for that to increase from 34% to 46%. So as you saw in the data I shared earlier, math had a bigger decline. So our goal was 54 based on where we were in 2018 and 2019. And so we've had to adjust our goals. And again, living document, we will continue to measure to ensure that we are providing the right supports for our teachers and for our students. Since only 85%, 84% of our students tested, it's hard to tell, again, how accurate this data is, but we've created the goals based on the data that we have. And so you can see, again, our student group data. And here in math, we've increased our goal to 5%. To try to get back to where we were. And for those student groups that I mentioned earlier, African American, Hispanic, special education, and economically disadvantaged, we've added that additional 3% to try to close that gap. We're measuring our math progress with our circle assessment again. Here you can see that pre-K met their goal. And all of the green areas were either they met or exceeded their goals. So again, very proud of the pre-K data. Kindergarten math has the same pattern than we talked about at reading, where only 27% of our students met their goal. So we're looking there at accelerating and really stretching those goals in kindergarten and keeping track of where students are so that we can continue to move forward. And first through third grade combined, this goal was met in math. And you can see where the student group goals are. And again, having that additional 3% for our student groups. For our math professional development plan, we have added math academies, and that is in any ISD professional development. So since our kinder through third grade teachers are attending reading academies, we've added math academies for our fourth and fifth grade teachers to really help them with that conceptual understanding, the hands-on application of math concepts for students, really taking a look at how they use small group instruction to differentiate, and it really allows for that data-driven grouping based on what they're seeing with their students during day-to-day instruction. A big focus again on really analyzing that map beginning, middle, and end of year, and their formative assessments, end of unit assessments, just really working in their professional learning communities to meet the needs of all of their students. So we have intentional progress monitoring walks that we do with campus administration. And here we're looking for trends and patterns across our campuses and how can we support through professional learning, modeling, coaching. And so we perform those walks weekly at some campuses. At other campuses, it's biweekly, monthly, depending on need and depending on data. And we use those walks to really layer support and to help meet the needs of all of our student groups. And based on where our teachers are as well, how can we provide them the support, the professional learning, again, the coaching and modeling to meet their needs. The last bullet here talks about our multi-tiered system of support system. And our campuses have created at the elementary level a master's schedule that allows for Tier 1, which is first-time instruction. Tier 2 is small group instruction, where they are either reteaching or extending for students based on their data. And then Tier 3 are those foundational skills for students that have large gaps. And so some students may need all 3 tiers. They need that support to close gaps. And so we're working, again, very closely with our campus leaders, with our coaches, with our teachers to make sure that they have the resources to support students during those different blocks. All right, Dr. Munoz.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. So now we're going to look at the secondary STAR data and how that is connected to CCMR. You're going to see similar indicators when it comes to the mathematics. So we'll go ahead and begin. So our current state, when it comes to secondary meets at the mathematics performance, if you look at the dark blue, dark gray, and the burnt orange color, you have 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and Algebra 1 there. If you look specifically at, there was a decline, just as there is a similar decline to the elementary. However, if you look specifically at 7th grade, there is a significant drop. And that basically is attested to the fact that we had a lot of 7th graders take the 8th grade assessment. And so that is represented here when you look at 8th grade mathematics. There was a decline still as well. But again, mathematics is a situation that we're trying to rectify across the state. This is of particular importance to the CNI department. They have the integration, obviously, of the mathematics academies, but they also have mathematics specialists that they're implementing there at the campus level to help support instruction. So if you look also at the secondary meets grade level STAR reading, this, I believe, is an area of celebration, considering that as you go from 6th grade on to English 2, English 2 saw a significant gain in percentage points when it came to the meets grade level performance. Although there was a decline in several areas, like you look at 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade as well, and English 1, the significant difference is a couple points in some cases, like the English 1 is down 3 percentage points. So ultimately, if you see that significant gain in English 2, there was a lot of work that was still going on during the pandemic, during virtual instruction, with the unknown and the uncertainty. And so ultimately right now, with the implementation of MAP assessments that are going on at multiple grade levels at the secondary level, they're able to progress monitor and pivot those particular lessons accordingly. If you look at meets grade level STAR science performance for 2018-19-21, again, there is a significant drop. Now, one of the things that I can mention is in relation to our summer programs. One of the things that secondary did is they created and basically recreated what summer school would actually look like. So they implemented a summer STEM academy, which was the integration of mathematics and science to help support those two subject areas. And then they implemented the ELAR and the social studies to make it more of a humanities type, so they could do the cross-curricular teaching and target all areas all at the same time, because we knew that this was a particular issue and we could definitely leverage more growth if we brought those two subject areas together. So we're eager to see when it comes to the actual assessments this year. Obviously, we are progress monitoring as we go with common formative assessments, but ultimately we also want to keep in mind that there is additional supports that are going on at the campus right now to help fix or ameliorate some of these situations. So if we look at social studies, we have 8th grade social studies and we have U.S. history. If you can see there, there was also a decline in 8th grade social studies. That was across the state as well. And if you know also U.S. history, historically, U.S. history has had a great passing rate, but again, with the unknown, with the pandemic, with the amount of content that is supposed to be pushed out through some of these areas, it was a difficult situation. So there was a slight decline there as well. So how does this relate to CCMR? So we are seeing indicators coming through STAR assessments and how that is going to lend itself to what our CCMR performance is and what kind of supports we have to provide our kids right now to be able to help them get there. So if we look at what CCMR is, we have college ready, career ready, and military ready. And so college ready is everything under the college preparation umbrella, which is a TSIA 2.0 and the regular. The 2.0 is just a combination of the reading and the writing assessment in one test. You have earning dual course credits. You have associate's degree completion. You have an AP score of 3 or higher on the AP test. You have the completion of on-ramps dual enrollment courses. For career ready, you have to earn an industry-based certification, graduate with a completed individualized education program plan. We also have a graduate under an advanced diploma plan identified as a current special education student or a level 1 or level 2 certificate. And then we have the military ready. Under military ready, we have Asvab, and as of right now, the state has still not figured out how we are going to be able to connect enlistment to the military to our report. So that is still pending until further information comes through.
I'm sorry, what is ASVAB?
The ASVAB is the assessment that is taken by students who are going to go or interested in going into the military. That is basically an assessment that measures a variety of components.
Is ASVAB an acronym for something?
Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery,
There
Mrs.
you go.
Williams. I
Thank
took
you.
one a long time ago. I
Okay.
don't know what that particular one is.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, sir, for that. So in looking at measuring CCMR, we're looking at annual goals for the aggregate student growth on CCMR. We're looking at, obviously, the attainment and the growth in those particular indicators. We're also looking at annual goals for students in each group evaluated under the GAPS of Domain 3, which is 25 or more students in each student group. And we're looking at creating and maintaining, aligning all of those goals to what is currently listed on campus improvement plans and district instructional improvement plans. Connecting that to our professional development plan will kind of bring everything and tie everything up together. So again, like Jennifer had listed, having these particular goals is going to be key because we have to have very specific, measurable, and attainable goals, and you'll see why. So if you look at our CCMR indicators, as of right now, we do not have our TAPR data. That is actually coming out December 2021. That is going to show whether our estimate for these particular indicators is actually true. So if we look here at CCMR, as of right now, our estimated percentage is 58.3% of our district students actually met the CCMR criteria. In the middle, you see the students who met it through college readiness, which is what I had just explained, TSIA, ACT, SAT, dual enrollment, all of those components. So we achieved rather well. If you notice, there we're above the state and Region 20 average. And then on the right-hand side, you have the career and military ready. Now, again, this is the removal of the military side. This is strictly career ready, which is the IBCs that we talked about and completion of a diploma plan. And so there, as you can see there is a specific area where we're not where we need to be, and that is something that we need, and we are putting directly connected to some of our campus plans, and we'll discuss that in just a second when I reach those action items. So when we look at the actual annual graduates that meet that criteria for CCMR, we want to increase from 58.3% to 69.3%. Now, previously we were at a 70%, which was last year, and we had thought of that particular percentage because of the fact that we were thinking about how can we particularly grow from one year to the next without lowering those expectations. And so if you look there in the middle, we had actually established a goal for 2020 grads. And if you can kind of think about it, it's always a year in the rear. So this is previous year's information. We had said we wanted to go to 65% based on what our 2018 grads were able to produce on 2019 data, if that makes sense. So if you look at that 65, it was established because it's a couple percentage points above the 63.7% that is part of the 19 report. In addition to that, we said, okay, a 65%, we know what 2020 had brought to us. Let's go ahead and make it this particular attainable goal with still systems in place. But unfortunately, when we actually look at what our estimate is going to look like, it's actually 58.3%. Like Ms. Gutierrez mentioned, we have to adjust our goals based on the needs of students. And so we had to come back and say, based on that particular percentage, we either have to go back to a more realistic and attainable goal with implementation of appropriate supports, which is why it brings us to 63%. If we would have gone and kept moving forward, obviously we want to keep towards the trajectory of 70%, but we have lowered that by a percentage point, which is still very, very good, to keep that level of expectation high. We've kept it at 69% by the time we reach the 2024 school year. So if you look here, the progress measure for the annual graduates who are considered college ready, again with that AP, SAT, all of those components there. Again, we had established a goal of 58% based on 2019 TAPR report, which is at 54.5%. We established a goal of 58%, and our estimate that's supposed to come out this December is looking right along that 46%. Now, again, we're looking at the implementation this year because, in my particular opinion, you look at Ccmr and that's something you could potentially change the narrative and say this is something we can plan to attain if we have the systems of support ready. And so in conversation with campuses and looking at AP scores, looking at TSI offerings, SAT offerings, like recently we had 1,600 kids take the SAT for our district. That was a great expected outcome that we really didn't imagine we would see. But the kiddos were ready. You know, they had a lot of preparation before from their teachers. They had sessions in the library. And so we were able to bring them into test. And so those are all opportunities that we can establish at the high school level to help us get to that particular goal. Again, looking at our goal being 57% by the time we reach that 2024, obviously we want to have that a little higher, but we had to adjust based on the fact that we had some students that decided not to take AP during virtual space, decided not to come and test. So those are all indicators that are reflecting here in this particular progress measure. And when you look at career readiness, so again, with the industry-based certifications and with completion of an IEP, you look at the fact that our particular goal is once again set based on 2019 TAPR report, which is what it was at 18. One of the things that I can say and that I'm very proud of my CTE department is that pre-pandemic, they were able to get 268 industry-based certifications as part of all of the programs that we have and we offer in our district. During the pandemic, they were able to pull 822 industry-based certifications. Yes. So I'm very proud of them for that because obviously there was a lot of planning, preparation, professional development. We were able to help those kids not only learn virtually, but also take the certification exams. So we were able to quadruple that amount. It's very intentional and very focused and very driven towards we have to offer more IBCs to our kids. So when they graduate, they can work in the field that they want to eventually study in. So that 20%, again, is a 2024 goal that may change. I mean, seeing what we were able to attain during a pandemic year, what it's going to look like this year, and then we can eventually adjust our percentages to meet that particular goal. So when it comes to progress measure number 3, the percent of annual graduates who have taken the TSI will increase from 38% to 53%. I can tell you that a lot of campuses right now, just looking at the 53%, they're looking at that as a particular challenge that they want to take the reins on because TSI is a college entrance exam and they want to offer more opportunities, especially to our seniors, to take that particular assessment. Everybody at the campus are looking at potentially offering workshops, doing things through the library, doing things through your upper level math and reading classes. And so if you look there, our goal is at 47%, which was based off of our 2019 TAPR. Our estimate is 38%. But again, with that in mind, to have an attainable goal of 43%, We are making some adjustments and hopefully to be able to surpass that and match, if not exceed, that 53% in 2024. So these are some of the items that we're doing as far as targeted professional development goes when it comes to CCMR, indicating specifically how we're going to monitor student learning in AP classes, on-ramps, CTE dual credit classes. We're looking at monitoring CCMR goals, providing college readiness opportunities so that way we can provide professional learning for the AP classroom resources that we have for our teachers, utilizing AP funds available for teachers attending summer institutes, providing and increasing and retaining enrollment in AP classes, on-ramps, and dual credit courses, and promoting and providing TSI assessment opportunities. So not only to provide the opportunity, but to give them the preparation necessary to be able to do very well in that assessment. And then again, when it comes to the career and military readiness, we're looking at promoting the Asvab assessment offerings, making those known as well. Utilizing also some funding sources so that way we can go ahead and provide teacher certifications for our CTE teachers who are providing IBCs, and then looking at coherent course sequences and monitoring IBC completion for all student groups. So part of this action plan has been the development of a coherent monitoring system. We're looking at all campus leadership teams. We've presented and talked to all high school campuses and looked at all of their data, broken down by student groups, and then looking at very attainable, measurable outcomes that they could definitely achieve if they have that intentional support available to kids, and we are providing that support as well. Intentional progress monitoring campus-wide CCMR goals by area per student group, and they all should connect to our CCMR district goals. We have also layered support options to help meet the needs of all student groups, because we have some student groups that may need some additional support than others, and so ultimately we have to provide the appropriate support regardless of the situation. And then also we're looking at beginning, middle, and end of year data review sessions with all of the campuses to make sure that they are on target. I am very hopeful to see that some of our campuses now, with this intentional pathway that they're developing with all of these particular CCMR goals, that they're going to be able to go back and look at actual data and monitor where they were at the beginning, where they were in the middle, and where they will be at the end of the year. And it takes multiple departments to support this effort. Obviously CNI, it takes my department, Learning Support Services, and also campus administration, because there are a variety of variables that happen or that occur alongside attainment for CCMR goals. So ultimately we need to be able to, as a whole, support them so that they reach their goals. Are there any questions?
I have some questions. That's okay. So kind of going back to the first part of the presentation where it talks about early literacy and math proficiency. And I see the goals there, and I see the closing the gap. And I guess my first question is, who develops the goals? Okay. And then how do we determine what's attainable? Is it just by looking at previous year's goals and what was done there? And I'm sorry, I said two parts. And I can repeat them. But I'm kind of leading up to, so say, for instance, one group, the goal might be 27%. Okay, and we say, okay, that's attainable. Last year we did 24%. We're going to increase it by the 3%. But do you track what happened to the balance of that, to that, 73%? Were those kids unteachable, or, what happened?
So there are several questions, so I'll start.
I know.
from the
How do you
beginning.
develop the goals first?
So the goals are developed. These are our district overall goals, and so they're developed by our teams based on where we were, so where our current reality is. And as I shared before, this year was difficult because this is based on 84% of our students taking the assessment. And as you can see here with literacy, We are trying to get back to where we were in 2019 and surpass that goal. And so we're looking at, again, the professional development plan, which includes reading academies, working closely with our teachers to know that they are focusing in during small group to reteach, to support, that they know their student data, that they know where each of their students are. We are looking at, when we're talking about attainable, 3 to 5 percentage points is attainable. And that's why we said it's a living document, and we will continue to adjust and monitor these goals based on what our results are as we keep monitoring from beginning of the year, as we shared with MAP, middle of the year and end of the year. So those also show us some proficiency levels for each of the grade levels in our student groups, and we may be able to adjust those goals based on where our students are at that point in time. Our campuses have their own House Bill 3 goals based on their data, and they develop those with their teams as well.
So I guess, are we saying we're satisfied with?
No.
In my, thinking.
Yeah, Ms. Williams, maybe I can address that. So when we write these goals, they're not a vision. So a vision is kind of where you hope to get to in the long-range planning. And so not to say that vision doesn't exist, but when we confront that current reality, we look at the data from the previous years and historical records in order to make a decision that becomes attainable. Once you hit those attainable goals, then you have an opportunity to say, we're moving in the right direction. Do we keep doing the same work that we're doing, or do we strategically abandon some of our practices? So these goals take in consideration the whole entire district and every student group. And so although that goal will seem very low in the grand scheme, in fact, if you go to the very first slide, the state of Texas goal that they set out for 2024 is that 60% of the students across the state of Texas will be college ready. That still, it seems low for a whole state of Texas. Well, they set that goal because historically we've never even gotten past 40%. And so that conversation started a long time ago because we had a lot of students who were not showing college ready, and essentially they were graduating with a high school diploma and nothing more. And so they created these tiers of college readiness, career readiness, and military. And then they put funding to support that. And so while we put our goals, we're trying to be very intentional. We don't want to get in front of you or anyone in the public and say, hey, we're going to put a lofty goal out there of 100%. All of our kids are going to go to college. Well, that's not our current reality based on previous data. And so just know that each year we bring this back to you to show our progress so we can say to you these things are working and we're moving in the right direction. Just like this current year, we trended backwards. Although we have some new narratives that attach to that, which is that only 84% of the kids tested, we still need to confront the real reality of where the numbers sit today.
Mm-hmm. So do we have kids falling through the cracks?
We always have kids falling, unfortunately.
Do we
We're
have a
constantly
lot?
trying to build bridges. And so what they've been talking about today is the intentionality that we've hired specific people to do targeted intervention, math acceleration teachers to try to support the kids along the way, whether it's coaching and training teachers to implement phonics in the classroom. It's a variety of things that we continue to do because we don't believe any child should slip through the cracks. And so we really are trying to be very targeted and specific to each child so that we can really meet this goal because they're not just a number, they're a name. And so that's kind of how we're approaching the work.
And then for college, career, and military readiness, you have separate goals, of course, for college, readiness, career, and then military.
Yes.
Do we, well, the answer is probably no, but do we add those percentages so that we know, what happened or where every student went? I guess my question is, do we track every student?
So what we're trying to do with our CCMR goals is we're trying to be able to provide opportunities for kids. In the long run, like Mr. Jarrett just mentioned, we don't want our kids just to leave with a high school diploma.
Sure.
So we want to ensure that we give that opportunity as much as we can to all student groups. And ultimately, whether a child decides to go to the university or college or decides to work in industry, we at least want to be able to set that child up for some sort of opportunity. One of the things that we've been talking to kids about is, especially with the TSIA assessment, that assessment is good for 5 years after kiddos graduate. And so that assessment basically gives them the prerequisite opportunities to be able to attend the university. Now, at that point, a kiddo may say when they graduate high school, I don't want to go to college. But if we tell them you have this assessment that you took and you were successful because we provided those supports, you have that opportunity to attend college 5 years after you graduate high school. And so it's been a lot of conversations that we've had to have with kids, with their parents, with their families. And it's been an ongoing conversation, specifically this year, because we've seen that that trend going backwards instead of forwards is something that obviously we don't want to keep, and we want to exceed that expectation. And so ultimately, if we do provide these opportunities for CCMR, these are one of the indicators that we can help give those opportunities for kids later on in the future.
But do we have the ability to track
So-
like 80% of
Right.
the
So
kids?
we can't track students who actually go out of state to college, but we can track students who go in-state through the clearinghouse. And so we can see which school kids go to college after that. We also don't know if kids have joined the military, and so that's why they moved to the Asvab testing as a means to be able to say whether they're military ready. The other layer is into what Dr. Munoz is saying. We're trying to do a lot of front loading on our side while we have them in our care. And that's why we've, as you guys have supported SAT School Day. State now has come along that every single child can take the SAT at least once before they leave our system. So if they don't take it their junior year, they can take it their senior year, hence the 12 or 1,600 kids that tested in December. We've increased access through AP, where traditionally it used to be AP or dual credit. Well, dual credit, you actually are hand-tied because you only have so many teachers with a master's degree that can teach dual credit. So instead, we expanded our on-ramps offerings because kids can get college credit that way. So you have 3 vehicles to get college credit, which is AP, dual, or on-ramps. And so our goal is that if every kid leaves our system with at least 1 college credit and or an industry-based certification and or take the ASVAB, then we know kids at least have 1 foot towards a life of success after they leave our system. That's really what we want to try to get to.
Okay, well, thank you. Don't mean to take it up with a lot of questions, but my concern is that, well, we set our goal, say we set a goal at 40% or 27% or whatever it may be, because, well, that's all we can do. That's all we've been able to do. So, that's all that's attainable for us. And, knowing that, well, we only have a few years to reach each kid, at what point would we say, okay, for say Hispanics, we'll increase that goal to 60% in literacy, or for African Americans, we'll increase that goal to, 50% in
Yeah,
literacy.
and that's the very conversation we had. And so although those are goals, Ms. Williams, those are not our behaviors or actions. So those goals is where we're hoping to at least achieve that amount in a year. But what we're doing is just really putting everything possibly in place to help all kids be successful. So if next year we come back and the goal is set at 47% and we hit 80, then we're not going to say, well, 80 is good enough. We're going to say we're going to go to 85. And if we hit that 85, then we're going to say that's not good enough either. We're going to go to 100. So the whole point of it is that continuous growth mindset, and that's what we believe is necessary for all of our kids. And no, we should not have low expectations of any child at any point in time, and we don't. I think it's just more us looking at our current reality, and I'm thankful that the state has actually put this because it really puts a focus on where we're trying to get kids to have a greater life after they leave our system.
Thank you. I hope I'm here when we reach that 80%.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that was mine. I'm so sorry. I have one question. The math academies and the reading academies, I know that those cost money, and so are those in our budget, or can we utilize ESSER funds to close the gap to fund those programs? And then Dr. Munoz, you can add 2 students that went to NEISD, that went to out-of-state schools, that went to college, to your percentage. The Winkley children did not go to college in Texas, so add those 2. So we're almost there.
We are using ESSER funds for our reading and math academies. We're using them to pay for our cohort leaders, also for the substitutes when we do have substitutes, or the supplemental pay that our teachers get for attending on a Saturday or after hours. So yeah, that is all coming out of ESSER funds.
My mic was off. Any other questions? It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, because that took a lot of time and work on a lot of people's parts, so we appreciate that.
Great to know.
Do I have a motion to approve the HB3 Neisd goals for the 2021-2022 school year as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 2, possible action regarding 2021-2022 campus instructional improvement plans. Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Mike, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. I would like to ask Dr. Munoz to come forward for this agenda item as well.
Good evening once again, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Tonight, we present the 22-23 campus instructional improvement plans for Northeast Independent School District. As part of this presentation, we'll review the contents of campus instructional improvement plans, and they will each be highlighted in this particular presentation. The purpose of the Campus Instructional Improvement Plan is to provide a working document that connects goals with the intentional implementation of strategies to help attain those goals. Each subject or action item listed on the SIP must be monitored and supported through strategic implementation of resources, staff, and funding sources. Monitoring systems should be in place to continually support academic progress and close achievement gaps, if any, throughout the calendar year. A thorough review of each plan must be done at the end of each year before establishing an action plan for the upcoming. Oops. Got it. So section 11.253, under planning and site decision-making process, each school district shall maintain current policies and procedures to ensure that effective planning and site-based decision-making occur at each campus to direct and support the improvement of student performance for all students. As you recall, when we went over the district instructional improvement plan, we had that particular image there on the right, which is, it's on your right. Obviously with the idea and the intentional support of leadership to focus direction, cultivate collaborative cultures, securing accountability, and deepening learning. When we look at all of those items, we also have to understand that we have to identify and set attainable goals. And so those particular goals are the House Bill 3. One of them is actually that part, so they connect. Assessing student academic achievement, identifying how campus goals will be met, determine the resources needed to implement these plans, identify the staff needed to implement the plans, set the timelines for reaching those goals, establishing progress measures for all performance objectives, identifying ways to encourage parental involvement, include goals and methods to ensure a safe learning environment, and set goals and objectives for a coordinated health program, to name a few. Under those statutes, I have there also the link that ties directly to this particular code. So part of these campus instructional improvement plans also revolve around what our district instructional improvement plan focuses on, which is our mission statement, which is we will challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Our 1 through 8 board goals, our accountability rating, and then we have our content side, which is the campus-led, and it's aligned to district centralized goals. The structure and the purpose behind our SIPs is the section and board goals that has the identified goals defined by our school district and the school board along with our campuses. We have our targeted areas, lists district target areas for improvement, measurable evaluation criteria, which defines the criteria that will be evaluated. The performance objectives and strategies defines the what and how the district will work towards that goal. Formative checkpoints, programs, assessments, and resources used to measure that throughout the year. And then the timelines are the persons, cost, and resources that will define the when, who, and what will be used to reach those goals. So here's a sample of what a SIP looks like. So we have our board goals, that is along the left-hand column. We have our targeted areas, which include all content areas. This is just an example. We have a measurable evaluation criteria that says that a particular student or a student group or a particular reading, let's say reading, math, any kind of content will increase student achievement by a percentage, which in this case would be 5% or more. We have our performance objectives and strategies, and we also have our formative checkpoints, which is when they will periodically check throughout the calendar year if they're meeting those goals. The timeline and responsible persons is listed along with the cost and resources, if any, that will help support that goal. So here we have our link to our plans. If you can go ahead and go through, can you click on that link for us? Oops, it's not working. There we go. Okay. So if we go down to where it says campus improvement plans, you go there where it says year on the right-hand side. No, right-hand side. There you go. Click on all. Scroll all the way down to where it says 21-22 draft. You can go click on submit. And then that will give you all of the drafts for all of our plans. They are in draft form until they are approved tonight. Do you have any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
I have one
Yes.
sort of just general. As the campuses are putting these together, I looked at a couple. There's a lot of information. A lot of people put a ton of work into these. But I noticed that, like at the high school level, there's some that will just have a category from math, and then they'll have their goals in the math thing, and then there's others that will specifically say Algebra 1 or biology or whatever. They'll give a specific class almost. Is there any parameters that they have to operate in to make them consistent between campuses, or are they just
No.
sort of, obviously they're campus specific?
They really are supposed to look at their data and use their data to create their goals and their action plans. They have to use their campus improvement team to get together and to develop and design those goals, and that they should be, again, written in a SMART goal manner
Right.
to make sure that they're measurable outcomes. So it just depends on their data and what their data says. Sometimes people will write a goal if there's multiple factors of math, whether it's AP, Algebra 1, et cetera, and so it may seem like a more general goal, but really they should be more specific than just general. And so I know Dr. Munoz is reviewing each of those plans with them and helping them navigate that, because some are really good at being very specific and some
Right.
are not. And so really just working with them and making sure they understand how to write a goal.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious if I know there's not a template. Well, there's a template because there's a whole spreadsheet for it. But just notice that some were very specific about a course, and then others seemed a little bit more general in nature.
And a lot of times the reason it may even be specific, Mr. Byer, is that if they're basing it on STAR in high school, Algebra 1 would be their STAR assessment.
Right.
But if their STAR assessment in Algebra 1 is not an issue, they may say math performance overall, which could be pre-cal, college algebra, et cetera.
Kind of all of it, and say we're just going to,
Yeah,
increase
because math
scores
is
by 10% or whatever
Yes,
it
sir.
might be. Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Anybody else?
I just had a comment. I see this as a strategic plan for each campus, and I'm glad to see that there's also a column for responsible person, so that the principal is not the only one responsible to implement everything, but you have different administrative folks or coaches or whomever responsible. So thank you.
Anything? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the NEISD campus instructional improvement plans for the 2021-2022 school year as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Winkley. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Munoz. Item 3, possible action regarding 2022-2023 proposed school calendar. Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the last item, I think. And members of the board, Dr. Micah, I would like to ask Dr. Munoz to come and address this agenda item. Yes, for me.
I've just been a little busy.
Just a little bit.
Just a tiny bit.
Have you slept lately?
Oh, no, not really, but it's all right. So tonight we are going to go over the calendar presentation, the proposed calendar for the 22-23 school year. So when we were looking at creating an instructionally focused calendar, we were looking at a learner-centered calendar, not only for our students, but also for our staff. We do realize that our students they have to perform a certain level under academic achievement. We have to provide intervention. We have to have enrichment. And we're looking at CCMR, which has been discussed throughout. Then also to be able to provide teachers with that opportunity to have that learning opportunity as well embedded throughout the calendar year is what drove some of the planning behind the two proposed calendars. And so when we look at 180 days, that's been a topic of conversation, specifically with the fact that there have been questions like, why 180 days? Well, in June 2019, with the passage of House Bill 3, we look at the added half-day formula funding for school systems that add up to 30 instructional days to any of their elementary schools for the 2021 school year. That additional funding is only tied to campuses and districts that have an academic calendar with at least 180 instructional days, with at least 75,600 minutes. We have a voluntary summer learning program, and we have an intersessional calendar. So luckily, we can check off all of those boxes because of the fact that we have a 180-day calendar. So when we look at our 180-day calendar, we also have to keep in mind that we wanted to have aligned to those 187 teacher days, and we also wanted to have the opportunity for embedded professional development throughout the calendar year. So part of this adoption process started not too long ago. We actually reviewed the two calendars that we had available for executive staff, October 27th. We actually took it to PTA Council with the help of Dr. Micah. We presented to PTA Council as well to hear their thoughts. We also had DEIC, and we had a presentation where we were able to review the differences of those particular calendars. And then we had the campus review and voting window from October 29th through November 5th. So part of this presentation obviously gives you the links to Calendar A, Calendar B, and the differences, but I'll go straight to the differences. In this document, it has the exact differences highlighted in green. If you notice, Calendar A would have new teacher orientation days August 1st through the 5th, with staff development days the 8th through the 12th, and then the first day of school starting August 15th. Calendar B has new teacher orientation days the 1st through the 3rd, staff development days the 5th through the 9th, with the first day of school starting August 10th. If you notice, September, October, November, and December are all the same. Everything is exactly the same until we get to January. When we get to January, we have our second semester beginning that first Monday after New Year's Day, whereas January in Calendar B has that first day as a staff development day, and then students come back the following day for the start of second semester. In February, we have no holidays or any time off for staff in Calendar A, but Calendar B does provide that February 20th as a student staff holiday. And then we jump all the way down to May. In May, Calendar A has early dismissal on the last day of school for May 26th, and then we have our Monday, May 29th as a student staff holiday with our bad weather days immediately after. In May of Calendar B, we have our last day of school, May 24th. We have a staff development day or a teacher work day the day after kiddos are gone. We have the bad weather day that's after that, along with the student holiday, and then our additional bad weather day there. So based on our DEIC final calendar vote, after presenting both responses, we were able to identify Calendar B as the calendar that they were particularly, they liked a little bit more than Calendar A. It was very different in the fact that we were starting, yes, a little bit earlier, but there is a give and take with calendars. If you move it up a little bit, then you're going to be able to have a little more wiggle room in between, and you would end a little sooner. However, they obviously saw that there were additional days that were embedded there specifically for staff development and specifically for at least having a holiday or a staff day, a break, if you will, in each individual month. And so we had 90% of the votes come in with one calendar vote for A. And then for our district voting, we had a large majority of our campuses. There are only a couple campuses that are missing here because they're extended school year campuses. We have our Castle Hills. We have our ACE campus, who also is under a different calendar. But all other campuses, with the exception of 3 elementary schools, had submitted their vote. Again, this is in addition to the fact that we were able to present all of the findings to everyone and put a window of review. With a total of 60% going towards Calendar B and 39.7% going towards Calendar A. So our recommendation tonight is Calendar B, with the beginning of year on August 10th, ending May 24th, with 180 instructional days and 187 teacher days. And I will open up to any questions you all may have.
Questions?
I got one question.
Yes.
Obviously, I saw you went to the PTAs, but did y'all do a wider spread of parents? Because obviously, this is pushing pretty early into August, and some people, family vacations, depending on their jobs and that, it starts cutting with that midweek start. Was that put out in any other wide format to the parents and guardians of the community?
What we did was we followed the same format that we had last year, with the exception of the PTA Council. With the PTA Council, we had representatives that were there from across the community, from various areas, and we presented both recommendations. I don't know if
Yeah, Mr. Hilliard, we haven't presented calendar to community as a whole, just because some of the variables that, we have to work through, and I know that people have different things that they want, but we're also restricted to the 180 days, the 75,600 minutes, the 187 teacher work days. Not saying that we couldn't, but we haven't done that in the past, and so in order to get the calendar approved and in front of you guys early enough so that the community knows and they can make arrangements accordingly, we followed the same process that we've done in the past.
Okay. And the one goal is to always be done by Memorial Day. Is that generally for all the graduations? That's pretty standard.
That's kind of a new goal, though.
Is that, or the new goal? Well, that's what I'm asking, because I know
Yeah, it's
last
good.
year, so is that kind of?
Yeah,
Okay.
the last 2 years? The last 2 years, but normally we would have
Go into
Memorial Day
June.
weekend, and then we'd come back and finish school.
Okay. A little bit later start in August, but then you'd be working through. That's why I'm just
Right.
asking, trying
and,
to figure
and
out.
when you go into June, what we've seen in the past is attendance is horrible. It's horrible. But to your point, Mr. Hilliard, so when these calendars were brought to us, that's why it went immediately to PTA Council. So that had I forget how many were on that. I don't know, it was a whole room
Be
full.
like 30 people.
Because of that very thing, it was starting so early, and I had hesitation with it.
Okay.
And so that's why we took it there. So we had folks I know in there from Reagan, from Johnson, from Roosevelt,
Lee. It was
Legacy. I think it pretty much everybody. And we had, we hijacked the meeting, quite frankly. But we had a very lengthy discussion over the calendars and things being, here's the trade-off, and really trying to help people understand the 180 days, the 75,600 minutes, all of those pieces. And at the end, I know you tallied them. I don't remember.
Informally, I would say probably 80% agreed that Calendar B would be beneficial. That we did discuss some of the challenges that people would be confronted with, and it was from a parent's perspective, which was the fine arts and band and different things like that. And I know Julie was looking into that, and she shared some ways to work around it. But that was really the biggest concern, is just the fact that, unfortunately, UIL and TEA don't always kind of talk. And so when that happens, we have two different entities operating at the same time. And so we're trying to find that sweet spot for the whole district at the same time.
Okay. No, thank you very much for the additional information.
I love this comparison page, your slide 7, calendar A, B differences. We've never been presented this, and I do appreciate this format. It was very easy to see why B was so popular, and because of the extra development days, I think, and the holidays. Sometimes you need a break in February.
And we usually go back to our campuses throughout the year and we say, give us a wish list of any kind. What do you need? Because when we're having these conversations about calendar, we want to make sure that it is going to be super appropriate, not only for our students, especially our students, but our staff as well. And so these were some items like the last day after kiddos leave. That was a request to close out the year for some teachers. They also requested that day in January because they wanted to come back and really look at data and see how spring is going to look different from the fall because of that exponential growth that some kids go through from August to December. Coming back, you're looking at a completely different student sometimes. So how do you reframe what you're doing and start spring semester on a good note? So,
did y'all have anything else? So I did hear from a Reagan mom that was in that PTA meeting that had concerns about the band and UIL. So can you kind of talk talk me through that a little bit? Because I guess she was saying that they can't start practice and they
Yeah,
can't push back band camp.
UIL essentially says that you can't start marching band practice till after August 1. So districts across the state have all different calendars, but the rule of UIL is still essentially you can't start practice till after August 1, where you can do 8 hours of practice in a day. So if class is in session, essentially those kiddos won't have access to the 8 hours. The workaround or opportunities that could exist is perhaps they could do a Friday night practice as well prior to the first day of school, and Saturdays is kind of what they, Julie said, would be the only workaround. It's not in its entirety. The difference in calendar A versus B is 3 days.
Okay.
And so it's not like the whole entire
week
summer's
or-
gone.
yeah.
It's 3 days essentially that they will have to recapture time that they may lose. And really that's why we have to take it to vote where everyone has a voice. And so we don't just make a decision based on one student group versus another.
Right, okay, all right.
And these are those things to Mr. Jarrett. You know, you have two entities that don't really talk to one another, but you have a state that's providing these opportunities, but then UIL is inflexible on some pieces. At some point, they have to come together. As more, I mean, look, Marath, you know, really pushed on, you know, year-round calendars and things like that. Well, all that stuff impacts UIL. So at some point, as more and more districts you see are moving to 180 or they're moving to year-round schools or something like that, at some point UIL is going to have to step back and say, we got to make some adjustments.
Because I imagine it's football too.
Yeah, say
not just
football,
band.
volleyball,
100%.
cross country.
Yep.
Everything that starts.
Everything
Correct.
starts-
Yeah.
Well, and compounding that is the District of Innovation versus regular, like us versus some other districts here in town that they get an extra week of whatever it might be. band
Well,
rehearsal.
like, and there's a
football.
great example, Mr. Byers. So DOI, UL didn't change anything when DOI came out, but you know, hundreds of districts across the state became DOI for calendar reasons, right? But you didn't see any adjustment. So at some point, the old customs have to be amended.
Right.
They're just going to have to.
Did bring up a question I had that I forgot about with it being a few days, couple days earlier, get out on the 24th instead of the 26th, I believe it said. Was there any discussion from any of those groups about that extra 2 days of potential childcare? Because I know a lot of times camps don't start until June for some families where they might have to go. And I know it sounds like it's only 2 days, but you know, was that brought up at all?
Yeah, Aubrey did. Sorry. No, yes.
I may or may not have talked to
that is
Aubrey.
I didn't know that was a thing until Aubrey pointed it out. But yes, that is something that some families may have to be some concerns about. That I mean, we don't know every situation and scenario across the whole entire district.
Sure.
But it is something that was discussed, and that's why we took it to vote, because we wanted people to have a collective voice, and so that's why we made sure that the campuses shared it with their entire staff.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the 2022-2023 proposed Calendar B District of Innovation option as the school calendar?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you get to sit down now?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much.
Item D1, possible action regarding comprehensive annual financial report for the year ended June 30, 2021. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Mike, executive staff, and guests, I call on Jeff Coates, our Senior Director for Accounting and Payroll, to present this item.
Good evening, and thank you for letting us be here to present the school's first rating for 2021.
Oh, wait.
Comprehensive annual financial
CAPRA.
report.
Oh, wrong one.
First, sorry.
Sorry. I thought first was first. My mistake.
First to second.
First to second. Well, thank you for letting me present the annual financial report. There we go. All right. We present to you a very large report, and it's extremely hard to go through and read. So the best way to approach it are several handy hints. One is a table of contents. It gets you to any point that you want in the report. transmitted letter is the district's forward-looking viewpoint. It's a letter to the bondholders, the stakeholders of the district. Kind of lets you know where we're going to be. Management's discussion and analysis is a report of what happened this year. Mr. Moy writes that with the help of Ms. Gabrielle and kind of points out the highlights of the financial year. And part of the management's discussion and analysis, the effect of GASB 68 and 75, which is the pension liability and the other post-employment benefit liability, they're both huge liabilities that have no effect on our operations, but make the first two full accrual statements look horrible. We have a negative net position on those, and so we split that out separately. And so the MD&A discusses the results of the operations we talked about, and we just talked about that, so I'm going to skip that and to be brief. Governmental accounting has the first two statements, which are full accrual. It's a statement of net position and statement of activities. The rest of the financial statements are on a modified accrual basis, which separates governmental accounting from regular accounting. And again, we highlight the TRS and OPEB liabilities. And this slide gives you the statement of net position, excluding pension and OPEB. And it is small enough and dark enough that I can't read it from here. But it gives you the highlights of that. And this slide tells you the net effect on governmental activities with OPEB. Again, we're going to skip that. Familiar statements, fund financial statements, governmental fund balance sheet, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for our major funds and our non-major governmental funds. Then we have our budget to actual statements. This is our general fund budget to actual statement. As you can see in the far right-hand column, we have the variance. We were within our budget for all of our expenditures as required by TEA. And if you don't have any more questions, well, if you have any questions, I'm going to skip that right now too, sorry. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Jeff, what was our opinion?
Yeah.
Our opinion I would leave for our audit firm to discuss. My opinion was a very fine report.
We do, yes, we do.
We
Does
read it.
anybody have any questions?
It's a good audit. He hasn't gotten to that point.
He hasn't gotten to that.
Yes.
He's going to let, because our auditors are here.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
I'm trying to be polite and not steal their thunder. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Does anybody have any
I
questions?
got one question, one comment. I guess first the comment, I saw the admin costs are only 5.5% of instructional thing, which puts us at the top 4% of all Texas school, which is the lowest, which is actually a good thing. It means we're spending money on instruction, not on admin. So Dr. Mike and everybody else, thank you for focusing on the instructional of all the kids, because obviously that's what it's doing. But I know that's a lot of work to keep the admin costs down, but that excess over. So thank you for doing that. Reading through the report, 240-something pages, it was a lot. The other question is, the enrollment on page 201, we're down another 2,500, 2,200. How does that impact us next year? I know y'all are, this is obviously, we're looking at this last year, but is that a concern from the financial side? I know we talk about it all the time, obviously enrollment's a big deal because of the ADA, but are we concerned going forward?
Yes, sir. I think we're going to probably be like 1,800 kids short, so we're going to have to make some adjustments, but we're going to use some ESSER dollars to help with that shortfall.
Other than that, thank you. It's a nice little read.
The answer is yes, we're deeply bothered by it.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just for the last 2 years, we've lost enrollment.
Right.
And each time we do that, we have to make decisions about, to make it up. So, the thing is, as we go into, Mr. Jaredis, he moves into predicting and trying to, look at enrollment next year. All of those things are going to come into play, and we're going to start making some recommendations, and you guys are going to hear about them.
Great, thank you. That's it, Madam President. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't think we have any questions for you.
In that case, I'd like to introduce our audit firm, ABIP PC. Jeremy Barbato is going to represent them.
Thank you, Jeff, for that introduction. Okay. My name is Jeremy Barbato. I'm an audit senior manager with ABIP, the independent audit firm that was engaged to perform the audit of the district's financial statements. I'm accompanied by the concurring partner, Janet Pittman. Michael Del Toro is the engagement partner in charge over the district's audit, but he couldn't be here today, so he sent me to, I guess, take the spotlight. I was in charge of the audit. I was the lead on the engagement. I supervised a team of about 4 other people that were going through the district's accounts. Embedded in the annual financial report are three of our letters. One is the independent auditor's report. Basically explains what we were engaged to do, and that's issue an opinion and audit the company financial statements for the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021. Management is responsible for the financial statements. Our responsibility is to conduct our audit in accordance with our standards and issue an opinion on the financial statements of the district. There are 3 standards that we had to follow this year, and that's generally accepted auditing standards, as well as government auditing standards and the uniform guidance. That said, our first opinion over the financial statements was a clean opinion, unmodified opinion, or as Jeff said, pretty darn good. So that basically says we had no modifying statements, that the financial statements presented in front of you were in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. It's the highest opinion you can get from an independent auditing firm. So basically a good year for financial reporting. The second opinion is our independent auditor's opinion over government auditing standards, and that's over the internal controls over financial reporting and compliance. This is a section of the report where we would issue if there was any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls. We're happy to say that there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses over the district's financial statements. So that's another clean opinion. The last one is over the uniform guidance. The district receives over roughly $87 million in federal funds. That requires a compliance audit or a single audit in compliance with uniform guidance. The 2 programs that we audited this year were the ESSER funds. ESSERs 1, 2, and 3 were expended during the fiscal year, as well as the IDEA B cluster program. Again, our report in the our independent auditor's report over the major programs was also a clean opinion. We had no material compliance issues with the compliance requirements over those federal programs. We did have one comment that I want to highlight, and it's not to the degree of a material weakness or significant deficiency, just a general comment for improvement in district's internal control. We had 2 transactions during the year that were related to subscription agreements that the district that spanned over multiple years, a 4- and an 8-year subscription purchase. The district recognized the total expenditure in fiscal year 21, but for accounting purposes, we should be recognizing that benefit over the life of the subscription. That accounted for about a $652,000 reclass out of expenditures and into prepaid items and unearned revenue. We had no issues with the allowability of the cost. It's just the accounting of it. We have to amortize that benefit over the life of the subscriptions. The last comment is over the Public Funds Investment Act. We're required to include as part of our audit compliance procedures related to the district's investment policies and its compliance with the Public Funds Investment Act. And we found as a result of our audit that the district did comply in all material respects with the act itself. With that, I'll take any questions you might have over the audit process or anything I talked about today.
Anybody have any questions? No. Oh, yeah. Yeah, great report. It was a great report. Thank you so much. Okay, appreciate all that. All right, do I have a motion to accept the comprehensive annual financial report for the year ended June 30, 2021 and file as required under law?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item 2, possible action regarding public notice of the School First Rating Report of Superior Achievement.
Yes, Madam President, I turn it over to Jeff Coates to handle this item.
Thank you once again. This time I will talk about schools first.
Okay.
I must point out, though, what just occurred was my favorite part of the whole audit process. For once, after having the auditors review our books and go through our transactions, I was able to stand and look over the auditor's shoulder. It's a very good feeling. All right, schools first is mandated by Texas legislature. We've reported on it for 19 years. This year, we have some ceiling indicators that limit the number of points that you could earn if you failed this indicator. We did not fail any of these indicators, so they did not apply to us. Statewide comparison ratings, you can see that many districts got either superior and or above standard. For us, we received the superior, one of the 83%. Our lowest scoring indicators are related to our current assets measured to liabilities. This is mainly due because of the cost savings on our commercial paper program. TEA doesn't recognize the cost savings that we provide to our taxpayers, but it's worth the lower scores in these indicators. So this is the second one that's also affected long-term liability to total asset ratio. Again, it's mainly the commercial paper program. And other than that, we have a report that is going to go up on our website tomorrow. Y'all have the report in your PDF. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions about this? Okay. Yay, superior. Do I have a motion to, let's see, it's recommended. Okay, do I have a motion to note the TEA School District Financial Integrity Rating of Superior Achievement and accept the Neisd Annual Management Report on Schools first?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, Jeremy and Janet, for being here tonight
Yes.
and being here so late. Appreciate you. Item E, consent. 1, internal audit plan. 2, business services. A, donations. B, 50,000 purchases. 3, operations. A, professional services contracts, construction contracts, and related contract amendments supporting the 2015 bond program and M&O funded program. 4, minutes from October 2021. 5, end of consent. Do I have a board member wishing to pull an item from consent? Nope. All right. Do I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item 11, reports. A, interim financial and management reports. B, awarded bid report. C, first quarter investment report. Those have been provided for you. Item 12, discussion and possible action regarding board members' request for items to be placed on a future agenda and our request for reports from the administration. Do I have anything?
I do have something to, our first speaker tonight, just to follow up on the policy or clarification. And maybe if you'll send an email to us on that, I am a little concerned about that.
Yes, what Mr. Jimenez and I have been communicating via text, so you will get an update later this week.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Do,
No.
No, but for the record, later this week, I will give you an update via email over the first speaker's comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have something, David? Oh, okay. 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 Item 13, adjournment, and the time is 9:21. Thank you all very much for being here.